Hello and welcome to News Central. I am Adebola Adedugba. The top stories are this hour. Top political leaders in Rivers State march in solidarity for Wike. Sokoto government debunks rumors of plan to dethrone the Sultan. Kenyan youth protesters to continue nationwide protests. And details shortly. We begin the news at this hour by telling you that barely 24 hours after the ousted council chairman defied police order in Rivers State, South Nigeria, to protest across the 23 local government areas due to the ongoing political crisis in the local government areas, the top political leaders from different wards of Obio Akpo local government area of the state have held a solidarity march for the FCT minister, Nyesom Wike. Minority Leader of the House of Representatives, Kingsley Ogundo Chinda, Speaker of the Rivers State House of Assembly, Martin Amawole, and former Council Chairman George Ariolo were among others that staged the Solidarity March in Port Harcourt. Their demands not unconnected with the call on the Inspector General of Police to continue occupying the Council Secretariat complexes and not to succumb to any form of intimidation. Their open support for the immediate past governor of the state, Nyesom Wike, comes at a time the IPO community women on Tuesday today barricaded the Port Harcourt airport in protest, leaving passengers stranded as the ongoing political crisis in Rivers State deepens.
Indeed, Rivers people have woken up, and I'm happy that at this point in time in our history, people are getting more enlightened. People are beginning to demand that the rights be done at all times. Any attempt to abandon laws of Rivers State would definitely be an invitation to anarchy. Nobody wants anarchy. Nobody wants us to go back to the state of nature, where life is brutish, hasty, nasty, and short. We cannot allow that situation where government will break down. And that is why all our laws must be obeyed. Even the governor must obey laws of Rivers State. He cannot cherry pick. The governor cannot cherry pick which law to obey and which one to disobey.
And so, like the governor said, there is no sacrifice that is too much for peace. However, if you want sincere peace, you must be ready to do justice. There can be no peace without justice. That sacrifice is to do justice and govern by the rule of law.
The Sokoto state government says, contrary to speculations by some persons and groups, the current regime of Governor Mohammad Ali has no plan to depose the Sultan of Sokoto, Mohammad Saad Abubakar III. In a statement on Tuesday, a spokesman for the state government, Abubakar Bawa, condemned campaigns to smear the cordial relationship existing between the state government and the Sultanate Council. A religious organization, the Muslims' Right Concern, Murik, had alleged a plot by the state government to dethrone the Sultan. Nigeria's Vice President, Kashim Shettima, had on Monday said the throne of the Sultan is an institution that must be guarded jealously and protected. The Nigeria police says it has arrested 4 suspects in connection with the killings of a retired military general over the weekend at his home in the Federal Capital Territory, Abuja. And this was made known by the FCT Commissioner of Police while parading the suspect alongside several other kidnapped suspects and their logistics suppliers. Our correspondent, Idong Joseph, tells us more.
This is the phone of the general.
On Saturday, June the 22nd, 70-year-old retired Brigadier General Uwem Udokwere was reportedly stabbed to death by unidentified persons who had invaded his residence at the Sunshine Estate of Abuja. While this brought tension to the area, the Nigerian police says painstaking efforts have unraveled the suspected killers, who are now in their custody.
We are going to get the killers by the grace of God. Today and now, I want to inform you that we have gotten the killers of retired Brigadier General Uwem.
The FCT Police Commissioner says that the weapons used to commit the crime was also recovered, and the police is still on the trail of 2 other suspects who were involved in crime.
We have recovered the knife they used in stabbing him, and we have recovered the phone of the general from them. 2 of them that have been declared wanted, we are getting them. They have just left with the gun of the pistol of the general.
While parading the suspects, the police says that it has also dislodged several kidnappers disturbing the peace of the FCT in their camps, including informants and logistic suppliers.
Ibrahim Mohammed is there. I will show you. Look at the one on yellow dress. He's an escapee from Kuje prison. He has been involved into kidnapping since 2022, unarrested, undetected, but we have arrested him. Nasiru Mohammed, he has been the person responsible for supplying everything they need in their camp.
The narco say, okay, they will give me 2 options. Because this is my farm here, if I will always supply legacy for them, they will allow me to do my farm. They cannot harm me. Their legacy, they bring Hollandia yogurt, sometimes bread, minerals.
The police also adds that it has also arrested 2 suspects involved in a recent bank robbery operation around the Abaji area of the Federal Capital Territory. In Abuja for News Central, I am Idonko Joseph.
I recall earlier we brought you the news that the governor of Sokoto State, and that's Ali Muhammad, says there is no plan whatsoever to dethrone the Sultan of Sokoto. And to unpack that, I am joined live on the news by the leader of the Muslims' Rights Concern, Professor Ishaq Akintola. Good afternoon. Glad to have you join me.
Good afternoon, ma'am.
Now, the Sokoto state government has denied allegations made by Murik about plans to dethrone the Sultan of Sokoto. I mean, what evidences or sources did Murik rely on to make such allegations?
Well, the Sokoto state government can tell its stories to the Marines. The Marines will believe them.
Why do
but
you
we
say
don't.
so?
We didn't just speak, we didn't just make this allegation. Imagine a governor, a state governor, deposing 15 traditional rulers in a single day at once. Not 1, not 2. That is a sign of power drunkenness. Our traditional rulers are symbols of our custom, our norms, our values. Particularly in Sokoto State, this is the home of Islam, the base of Islam in Nigeria. And the Sultan is the head of the Sultanate Council. Those traditional rulers, 15, who were deposed, removed for flimsy excuses, the Sultanate Council knew nothing about it. There was no news, no information given to the emirs. The governor just acted on his whims and caprices. We will not accept that. That is not democracy. Democracy is about consultation, information, not just one person acting autocratically, territorially, and of course, leaving the rest in limbo.
Professor Akintola, yes, just for clarity's sake, Prof, just for clarity's sake, you talked about, 15 traditional rulers, deposed in a day. I mean, what reasons were given whatsoever for their deposition?
Like I said, flimsy excuses.
Like what, please? Share
Our
with us.
governors, well, some were accused of being involved in politics. Some were accused of conspiring, conniving with bandits. Of course, whether they have evidence or not, the Sultanate Council should be involved before any traditional ruler in Sokoto State. That is the practice. And that is also enshrined in the laws of Sokoto State. But our governors these days, it's not only in Sokoto State alone, our governors appear to be going to be acting with impunity. Oh, we have a governor who pulled down, demolished totally the building of the House of Assembly of a particular state. There is one that is now threatening to pull down the palace of Bagero. These are unheard of incidents, and it is only people who are thoughtless and reckless who engage in such things. Now, it is political vendetta that is at play in the removal of those 15 rulers. How did, within 1 year, it was less than 1 year that he came into power. How did he investigate the crimes committed by those traditional rulers that he will remove up to 15?
If I may, Professor Akintola, you talked about the governor of Sokoto State, Mohammad Aliyu, acting on whims and caprices. I'd like to find out from you what's the due process when it comes to removing a particular sultan.
That due process involves consulting the Sultanate Council, involving them, carrying them along. So, but what has happened now is exclusivity. The Sultanate Council has been excluded totally, and the influence and authority of the Sultan has been diminished. That is a prelude, a preparation to, bad songs will come before war. It is when you start singing bad songs and you beating war drums that we will know that war is coming. Murik doesn't have to wait. Our experience in human rights protection is enough to tell us that, look, this is what is coming. So Ludo, former governor of the CBN, removed about 4 traditional rulers in a day. There have been so many examples about our governors going bananas, and this should be checked. We are saying the state houses of assembly, the lawmakers in the states, should check these governors. They are too reckless. The traditional rulers, not only the Sultan we are talking about. We have issued statements before asking lawmakers all over the federation to check the governors, to remove and repeal that section of the law in their states which empower the governor to appoint and remove the governor. Okay, the governor should be reduced to ceremonial leaders in matters of tradition. Politicians have no business in tradition. Professor, they are trampling on our custom, our norms and values.
Now, Professor Akintola, you talked about, writing to lawmakers to see how to amend the Constitution in a way to, check the powers of the governors of the state. Now, beyond that, with the issue, on ground, what effort is Murik making to help resolve these issues? You talked about 15 traditional rulers who have been deposed, and also now deposition of the Sultan of Sokoto, which the governor has denied. So solutions now, what steps are you taking to have this issue resolved?
Of course, we envisaged that definitely Sokoto State government would deny. Our own is to make the allegation. The onus is on the Sokoto State government to come to the world, to tell the world whether it is actually planning to do so or not, and then to give us evidence that he has been carrying the Sultanate Council along, or that it has been hobnobbing and doing the same things, or rather acting friendly towards the Sultan. It is the onus is on the governor and his government to give us that evidence. It is our right to opinionate, to give our opinions. If they have the evidence that it is not so, let them come forward with it. And don't forget, the same day that we issued our statement, a statement was made orally, physically, by the Vice President of this country, Senator Kashim Shettima, His Excellency, on the same issue, reminding the government of Sokoto State that the Sultan of Sokoto is not just the Sultan of Sokoto Emirate alone, but he is an institution and should be respected. What prompted the VP's utterances, statement? We didn't make any contact. On the same day our statement came out, the VP spoke. If there is nothing there, then this is not an ordinary coincidence. Something is in the offing. Sokoto State was planning something, but they have to withdraw.
Okay,
they are putting the car in the reverse gear now because people are talking, people have seen what they are trying to do.
That's a fine place to leave
it.
We are pressed for time. Yes, we're pressed for time, and that's a fine place to wrap it up. Thank you so much for sharing your thoughts on the news. Professor Ishaq Akintola, leader of Muslims' Rights Concern. Many thanks once again.
My pleasure.
The Executive Director of Youth Initiative for Advocacy, Growth and Advancement, Yaga Africa, Samson Itodo, expressed belief in the ability of the new leadership of the Plateau State Independent Electoral Commission to deliver on its mandate as plans commence for the state local council elections. Mr. Itodo adds that his vice is in opposition to call for dissolution of state independent electoral commissions. He said this would make governance at the grassroots more cumbersome. Our correspondent, Chizoba Anyonwe, tells us more.
Youth Initiative for Advocacy, Growth and Advancement, Yaga Africa, is a civil society organization birthed on the plateau to oversee and monitor electoral processes with a vision to make them more effective and efficient. Speaking in Jos, the capital of Plateau State, north-central Nigeria, during his visit to congratulate the Plateau State Independent Electoral Commission, PLASEC boss, Planji Shishak, on his appointment, Samson Itodo noted that most of the failures recorded in the past polls in the state will definitely mask subsequent ones if nothing is done to address them.
This commission will need to pass 3 tests. The first test is the integrity test. The second test is the competency test. And it's whether not just the leadership, but across the entire local government, that every official who will be managing the election will have the requisite capacity and the competence to manage the elections. The third very important test that you will face is the resilience test.
Believing in the plans of the Commission to step out effectively and efficiently too, the PLASEC boss is optimistic that the people of the state will not regret their coming on board.
We are studying the operational workings of this place. We are seeing deficits where we need to correct. We are looking at the details of processes that we need to follow. And I'm sure from the processes, you will identify whether we are willing to be very credible or we are operating in secrecy.
The place of training cannot be overemphasized if better results are expected in the grassroots polls.
We can assist, at least in training, helping the training. We are world experts now in terms of mobilization. I think that you cannot write the history of elections in Nigeria without mentioning Yaga.
More activities are expected in the coming days from PLASEC for free, fair, and credible elections in the state. In Jos for News Central, Chizoba Anyonwe.
You're live with News Central TV. Let's take a short break. Stay with us. Thank you for staying tuned. The annual Day of the Seafarers is celebrated 25th of June, and this year with the theme, Safety. Seafarers have always played a critical role in helping to protect the health of our ocean and planet, and this role has become increasingly important. Every day at sea, they help to enforce the International Maritime Organization's environment-related treaties by implementing rules on garbage, sewage, and air pollution prevention. Our correspondent, Norma Obi Aswalo, has details.
This year, once again, the annual Day of the Seafarer will be celebrated on June 25th with the theme Safety. The Day of the Seafarer was established in a resolution adopted by the 2010 Diplomatic Conference in Manila to adopt the revised STCW Convention. Its stated purpose is to recognize the unique contribution made by seafarers from all over the world to international seaborne trade, the world economy, and civil society as a whole. The resolution encourages governments, shipping organizations, companies, ship owners, and all other stakeholders concerned to duly and appropriately promote the Day of the Seafarer and take action to celebrate it meaningfully. The Day of the Seafarer is recognized by the United Nations as an observance day. Therefore, their role is a significant force in facilitating ocean trade across borders and within coastal waters. Seafarers spend a great deal of their time on board ships, and this provides many opportunities for them to take pictures of their working environment. For the 2024 campaign, Safety Tips at Sea will be the new hashtag.
Seafarers have been sorely tested in recent years, currently facing hostile acts from piracy or in conflict zone. I humbly acknowledge seafarers' resilience and sacrifice in the name of work. Seafarers, I have seen you work on deck and below, in engine rooms, on bridges, in canteens and in cargo holds, making the world's largest methods of transportation go. And you do this with the highest levels of safety while always ready to tackle emergency situations. Clearly, no one knows your work better than you. Your experience is absolutely vital for the future of shipping in a safe sector. So I would like to invite you, seafarers, to join the safety conversation. We want to hear from you. Let us know how you keep up with the pace of technological change and innovation to stay safe on board, and how you cope with mental challenges. I invite you to share your photos to top tips for safety at sea.
In Lagos, for News Central, Norma Obiaswalo.
The controller of Apapa Area Command of the Nigeria Customs Service, Babatunde Olomu, on Tuesday joined the commander of the NDLEA, Apapa Special Area Command, and other government agencies in the port in the work to commemorate the 2024 International Day Against Drug Abuse and Illicit Drug Trafficking. The customs boss notes that such collaboration between sister agencies of government is crucial for intelligence sharing and ensuring public safety. Residents of the Trademore Estate at Lugbe area of Abuja expressed fears over the inability of the Federal Capital Territory regime to clear the waterway around the area, which has been blocked by other private estates, saying they fear their houses will be submerged as Nigeria reaches the peak of its raining season. Earlier reports had claimed 2 residents of the estate lost their lives in a recent flood, which affected the area. However, the residents say the report is untrue. Our correspondent Joshua Imarai has details.
This is Trademore Estate in Nigeria's federal capital, Abuja. Like previous years, the estate has repeatedly been submerged by floodwaters anytime the area witnesses torrential rainfall. However, eyewitnesses say the recent incident did not record any loss of life.
So what happened today that this morning as early as 5:30 to 6, the water it was rising as if, but before you know it, the water have to, because there's a place we have a box where the water have to box there. Yeah. So when the water have to box there, then the water now start coming up. So thank God that nobody dies. Even some of my personnel that sleep inside, I have to wake them up. All of us have to stand up to start saving some people property. So So nobody dies in this estate.
Automatically, this water is not coming from this estate. This affection is not in this estate. It's from somewhere else. You can see something like that. It block here. Let them shift back. Let them give us a gap so that the water can be moving freely.
Well, so far, no physical activity, has been carried out by the different government agencies to correct this issue. But what we've had so far has been a town hall meeting where Ministry of Environment, called all the relevant authorities, all the stakeholders that has to do with anything flood within the nation. We met in their office. They looked at the whole issue critically to address the incessant flood within Trademore environment, Trademore and its environment. And they identified key features that actually causes this flood within and around Trademore. They took steps to, apportioning practical steps on how to address these issues. But up till date, no action has been taken.
Some of them expressed fears over their inability to sleep peacefully whenever it rains and called on the government to address the situation with the blockage of the waterway in the area, saying they fear their houses will be submerged as the rainy season reaches its peak. In Abuja for News Central, I am Joshua Imarai.
Coming up, Mali junta jails 10 opposition officials calling for civilian rule. We have details shortly. Join us again. Thank you for staying with us. Mali has jailed 10 opponents of the ruling military junta, including leading opposition politicians, for demanding a return to civilian rule. The lawyers said the 10, who include the heads of parties and groups who signed a March declaration urging the restoration of democracy, are accused of illegal gatherings and plotting against the legal authorities. Those jailed were among 11 people detained last week while holding a private meeting in the capital, Bamako, after calling for a return to civilian rule. The junta has banned political party meetings. The military rulers, who seized power in 2020, had promised to organize elections and hand over power to civilians by the end of March this year, but later postponed elections indefinitely. And 4 protesters have been shot outside Parliament. An NGO in Kenya Human Rights Commission says. It says 1 person has been killed, and this has not been confirmed. Thousands of anti-tax protesters in the Kenyan capital, Nairobi, pushed their way into the complex where the parliament sits, with reports of people being wounded as police fired rounds to disperse the crowds. In the meantime, the Kenya Human Rights Commission has condemned the act, calling such actions unacceptable and constituting a grave violation of human rights. As South Africans wait with bated breath for the announcement of President Ramaphosa's cabinet, Corruption Watch says it is evident that yet another new era promise in his inauguration speech is off to a rocky start, as ANC is far from ending corruption in the country. Now, this follows the swearing-in of former Minister of Sport, Arts and Culture, Zizi Kodwa, who has been sworn in as ANC Member of Parliament despite facing serious corruption charges for allegedly accepting 1.7 million rand bribe. And to unpack this, I'm joined by CEO of OUTA, and that's Wayne Duvenage. Good afternoon. Glad to have you join me.
Yeah, good afternoon. Nice to be with you.
All right. Let me start with the recent move by the ANC to bring back to Parliament those, previously charged with corruption allegations. What does this say, for a party? What does it speak to them as a party?
Well, it basically says to us as civil society that the party is not serious about dealing with corruption in government. Zizi Kodwa has not just been fingered in the Zondo report, but has now had charges laid against him by the National Prosecuting Authority. And we believe those charges are very strong. They wouldn't have gone down this road. So he resigned recently as a minister, acknowledging that he was not fit for this role, and yet he still keeps his name there in the MP list, members of parliament list, and the ANC have appointed him today into parliament. And we don't believe it's fit to have, or right to have, people of this nature serving us in parliament.
Do you think the ANC can ensure that those reinstated ministers are held accountable for their actions, and also any potential wrongdoing?
Well, you see, what will happen is if Zizi Kodwa is found guilty in the court of law, he's going to have to step down because our laws are quite clear on this matter. But until then, the ethics committee within the ANC is certainly not applying a consistency in their step aside rule. So while legally he's allowed to be an MP, this is a question of ethics and conduct by the ruling party, or the then ruling party, now one of the dominant parties in the government of national unity, which is still unfolding right now. So yeah, we've got to start holding people to account for this gross maladministration and corruption that takes place ongoingly in the public sector in South Africa. And I'm afraid, while we have MPs that are implicated, that there's enough evidence and information out there, although the wheels of justice are turning slowly, it just isn't right. It doesn't taste good for us to have people of this nature involved in such conduct in Parliament.
I'm happy you touched on something very interesting, which is ethics. I mean, what does this mean for the ruling party, looking away from ethics and also integrity? And then what's the perception of people about this drama unfolding?
Well, the perception has been one for a long time. There's so many stories and in the media, credible media, a lot of information put forward about how closely linked some ministers are to the gross maladministration and corruption and inefficiencies in our government. These are people that are appointed by the president, and those people appoint people in senior positions in various departments who have been found wanting. And it really does damage the credibility of the ruling party and our government as a whole. And for some strange reason, while the ANC continues to talk about rejuvenating itself and ridding itself of this cloak of corruption, it doesn't seem to be learning much, and it doesn't seem to be applying this ethical process of doing its own thorough investigations and removing people that are fingered in government, in corruption and misconduct in South Africa.
All right, thank you so much for bringing light to this issue. CEO of AUTA, Wayne Duvenage. Many thanks once again.
Yeah.
WikiLeaks has announced that its founder, Julian Assange, has left the UK after striking a deal with US authorities. Now, this agreement will see Assange plead guilty to criminal charges, allowing him to walk free after a prolonged legal battle. Assange had been charged with conspiracy to obtain and disclose national defense information, with US officials arguing that WikiLeaks' disclosures about the Iraq and Afghanistan wars had endangered lives. For the past 5 years, Assange has been fighting extradition to the US from a British prison. In addition to the US charges, Assange faced separate allegations of rape and sexual assault in Sweden, which he has consistently denied. The deal, which involves Assange pleading guilty to one charge under the Espionage Act, is expected to be finalized in court in Northern Mariana Island on Wednesday, June 26th. And for more on this, I am joined by our international correspondent, Afia Hagen. Afia, can you tell us the circumstances that led to Julian Assange being released in the first place?
Well, yes, absolutely. Like you so rightly said, Julian Assange had been held in Belmarsh prison here in the UK for 5 years, a total of some 1,900 days. And it's thought that there was a change of heart from the High Court here in London about Julian Assange's constitutional protections. That's what his wife Stella Assange said this morning on BBC Radio 4. Now, she has been a little bit cagey, I guess, in interviews, and it's the only interview that she's given to BBC Radio 4. She says she's limited about what she can say about this agreement in principle with the US Department of Justice. But like I said, it's thought that there was a breakthrough in the High Court in London when they began to consider Julian Assange's constitutional protections under freedom of the press. Now, those protections are what basically his campaign was built on. His wife and his legal team and campaigners had said that what Julian Assange did and what he did was he disclosed information about the Iraq and Afghanistan war on WikiLeaks. He said that that was through the public interest. He was doing his job as a journalist, and that's why he should be protected under freedom of the press for releasing that information. Now, most of the counts that he was under, with 18 counts that he initially was charged with, these were under the 1917 Espionage Act, which broadly criminalizes the mishandling of government records relating to national defense. And if you are talking about the Iraq and Afghanistan war, those would fall under that particular act. So the Trump administration, the Obama administration, and the Biden administration in the United States all pushed for Assange's conviction. It has not happened, and it's thought that he will plead guilty to one charge later on today or early tomorrow morning, and then he will be released because of the time he's already spent in the UK in Belmarsh prison. Because of that 5 years that he has spent in prison, it's thought that he will not face any other prison time. So he's on his way to a US District Court in the Mariana Islands. It's thought that he didn't want to go to the United States because he doesn't trust the United States.
Now, following the release of Assange, what has been the reaction of people to this? You know, after 5 years in prison, how are people reacting to this?
Well, this absolutely took a lot of people by surprise. He actually had another appeal coming up later on this summer, and I think that's what a lot of his supporters were kind of looking forward to. Didn't realise that the High Court had been reconsidering Julian Assange's rights under the freedom of the press. Democratic Congressman Jim McGovern and Kentucky Republican Thomas Macy, they've been leading a bipartisan group on Capitol Hill pushing for Assange's release, and they released statements. McGovern said, this is the Democratic congressman, he said, I don't think Julian Assange broke espionage laws and I don't think he should be charged in the first place. And he said, I worry this plea deal could be a bad precedent, but I'm glad this ordeal is over so that Assange can return to Australia. That is, of course, Julian Assange's country of birth, to be with his family and focus on his health. And now Thomas Massey, the Republican candidate, has said that Julian Assange's liberation is great news, but he also said that it's a travesty that he's already spent so much time in jail and that Obama, Trump and Biden shouldn't have pushed for this prosecution. Now, the Australian Prime Minister Anthony Albanese also made comments when speaking in Parliament. Now, he's been talking about the diplomatic assistance that Assange has been given by Australian officials. He also talked about the years of advocacy and high-level diplomacy that have been taking place to push for Julian Assange's release. Now, Anthony Albanese has been backing the calls for Julian Assange to be returned to Australia since, you know, he has been in Parliament. He actually passed a measure calling for Julian Assange to be returned to Australia. He has been at the forefront of the campaign to make sure that Julian Assange is returned to his country of birth and that he was freed. So Anthony Albanese, the Prime Minister of Australia, is certainly pleased that this has come about.
Thank you so much for your perspective, Afia Hagen, our international correspondent. In business, operators in Nigeria's downstream oil sector urgently seeking intervention from the federal government amid fuel import surge. The call comes as marketers increasingly opt to import cheaper refined petroleum products, bypassing Dangote Petroleum Refinery. They also criticized international oil companies operating in Nigeria, accusing them of selling crude oil to Dangote Refinery at prices higher than the global market rate. Now, this practice has been described as anti-country by industry stakeholders. The Independent Petroleum Marketers Association of Nigeria clarified that the higher cost of diesel and aviation fuel produced by Dangote Refinery is driving marketers away. IPMAN National President Abubakar Megandi responded to the claims from the Dangote Refinery, which states that it had exported approximately 3.5 billion liters of refined products to Europe and other countries due to some marketers importing substandard fuel into Nigeria. Megandi also pointed out that Aliko Dangote, president of the Dangote Group, has not collaborated with IPMAN, which he cited as a contributing factor to the challenges facing the $20 billion refinery. And to unpack this, I am joined by Senior Investment Research Analyst, Meristem Securities Limited, Esther Ososoya. Good afternoon. Glad to have you join me.
Good afternoon. Thank you for having me.
The pleasure is all mine. What are the potential, economic consequences for Nigeria if allegations of sabotage by international oil companies against the Dangote refinery are really true?
Well, if the allegations of the sabotage against
Can you hear me?
Dangote, but other modular refineries.
Okay, we lost you for a bit there. If you can share your thoughts again. We lost you for a moment. Just take your thought again.
Okay, I'm sorry about that. Not just Dangote, but other modular refineries have clamored about some issues recently about IOCs not supplying crude oil for their operations. So there are a lot of economic forecasts that has been made hinged on the successful operations of Dangote refinery. So if these allegations of sabotage come true, then there's the expectations of more transparent oil and gas sector with healthy competition might not materialize soon. I mean, we also see the impact on FX stability too, because the refined products from Dangote would it means Dangote refinery will continue to import crude, and this will keep pressure on FX marketers as well, sourcing for their products, wanting to rely on importation rather than buying from Dangote. This is just a lot of pressure for FX, which the government is trying to stabilize. Also, the refined products will remain elevated regardless of it being refined locally or not. So, seeing the fact that Dangote has to source for this crude from international markets, so there's still that shipping cost or transportation costs that are factored into final price. So, I mean, there's just a lot of implications if you look at it generally.
Now, let's talk about perception now. How do you think investor confidence will be impacted? Looking at the alleged actions of international oil companies affecting investor confidence in Nigeria's downstream oil sector.
Well, generally, these are not interesting things investors would like to hear about a country they are looking to invest. The sentiment around Nigeria's oil and gas sector is just beginning to recover. We've been seeing a lot of divestment from IOCs and all. But if we see this kind of conversation come up regularly, it could deter foreign investment and even impact the overall industry. So we're not just looking at the downstream sector only. We're also looking at investments across the value chain. But really, for the downstream sector, that's majorly the refinery, domestic refining. If there is not there's not a structure put in place to ensure that supply of crude, we won't see investors who are looking to set up similar entities come up to want to do this. So for sentiment, really, this is not something positive.
Well, thank you so much for sharing your sentiment. Esther Otusoya, investment research analyst, senior, I must add, investment research analyst, Meristem Securities Limited. Many thanks once again.
Thank you for having me.
And that's all on the news at this hour. But before we go, let's take a look again at some of the major stories. Top political leaders in Rivers State march in solidarity for Wike. Sokoto government debunks rumors of plan to dethrone the Sultan. Kenyan youth protesters to continue nationwide strike. Send your eyewitness report to the WhatsApp number on the screen and follow us on social media. We are at News Central TV. You can watch us live on DSTV, channel 422, Star Times, channel 274, Avo TV, and YouTube. Many thanks for watching. I am Adebola Adedugba.